Every single day, with every click you make, your computer's having a quiet, invisible conversation. In this explainer, we're going to try to listen in. Think about this for a second. You're signing up for something new. You type in a username and bam! Before you can even blink, the site tells you it's already taken. There's no page reload, no waiting. It just knows. It feels like magic, right? So how does it actually do that? All right, let's pull back the curtain on this little piece of internet magic. You're about to see it's not a trick at all, but actually something way more elegant. See, at the very heart of it all is this one simple idea. Everything you do online, from just loading a web page to checking if that username is free, is basically a conversation. It's a silent, super high-speed dialogue between your computer and another one that could be thousands of miles away. So, to understand how this all works, let's start with the most basic exchange there is. We can think of it as the fundamental hello of the internet, a basic handshake. Now, in this conversation, there are two main players. The first one is called the client, and that's really just a fancy name for your web browser, whether it's Chrome or Safari or whatever you use. Its job is super simple, to ask for things. And the second player, that's the server. You can picture it as this powerful computer that's always on, and its whole job is to hold all of a website's files and just listen. It listens for requests from clients, and when a client asks for something, the server answers. So how do they actually talk to each other? Well, like any good conversation, they need a shared language. They use a set of rules called HTTP, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This protocol is basically the grammar of their conversation. It spells out exactly how a client should ask for a web page and how a server should answer back. So here's how that conversation looks in its simplest form. When you type a web address and hit enter, your browser, the client, sends out a request. The server gets that request, finds the file you asked for, and sends a response right back across the internet. Then your browser catches that file and shows you the web page. Simple, clean, and incredibly fast. But, what about websites that aren't just simple pages? Things like your social media feed or your Amazon shopping cart, the stuff that feels more like an application. Well, that's where the conversation gets a whole lot more interesting and a lot more personal. This brings us to a really important difference: a static page versus a dynamic page. A static page is like a printed flyer. It's already made, and everyone who asks for it gets the exact same copy. But a dynamic page, that's more like a personalized letter. The server doesn't just grab a file that's sitting there, it actually builds the page from scratch, just for you in the exact moment you ask for it. Now, to build that custom-made page, the server needs two new things: a set of instructions on how to build it, and a place to grab all the personalized info from. The instructions usually come from a scripting language, and a really common one is called PHP. When the server gets a request for a page and sees it has PHP code in it, it knows it has a job to do. It isn't just sending a file anymore, it's following a recipe to cook something up from scratch. And the information for that recipe? That comes from a database, something like MySQL. The best way to think of a database is like a gigantic, perfectly organized digital library. The PHP instructions can tell the server, hey, go to this library and pull me this specific information, like your name, your friend's latest posts, or the items in your cart. Okay, so let's walk through this more complex dance. Your browser asks for the page. The server sees it has those PHP instructions, the recipe. The recipe tells the server it needs some specific information, so the server goes and asks the MySQL database for it. The database finds the info and sends it back. Finally, the server uses that info to assemble a brand new, personalized web page and sends it back to you. All of which brings us right back to our original mystery. How does a website know instantly that your username is taken without reloading the whole page? The answer is pretty cool. You have to make the page itself an active participant in the conversation. The tools that make this happen are JavaScript and a technique called AJAX. See, while PHP and MySQL do their work on the server before the page even gets to you, JavaScript runs inside your browser after the page has loaded, and AJAX is what lets that JavaScript send tiny new requests back to the server all in the background without ever interrupting what you're doing. And here it is. This is where it all comes together. The moment you type, say, Sam Smith into that username box and click away, JavaScript notices. It quietly sends a tiny AJAX request, a little background whisper, to the server asking, hey, is Sam Smith taken? The server does a super quick check of its database and sends back a tiny response, yep, and JavaScript gets that yep and instantly updates the page with that little warning message. all of it happening in the background, no page reload. This ability to have all these constant, small background conversations is what makes the modern web feel so fluid and alive. It's the key that unlocks the door between a simple web page and a truly interactive application, something that feels just as quick and responsive as an app running on your actual computer. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the web isn't just a static library of documents anymore. It's a living, breathing network of conversations. And understanding this is the first step to creating your own. Every single thing you do online, every click, every search, every single login, is just one part of this incredibly complex, silent dialogue. A constant back and forth between clients and servers, speaking HTTP, using PHP and MySQL to build personalized realities, and then using JavaScript and AJAX to listen and respond in an instant. One of our sources puts it so perfectly. It says, the real beauty here isn't any single one of these technologies. It's the wonderful, almost orchestral way they all work together to create the dynamic experiences we kind of take for granted now. So, the next time you're on a website and you see a little loading icon spin, even for just a fraction of a second, maybe you'll see it a little differently. Not as a moment of waiting, but as a moment of this intense, quiet conversation happening in the background, just for you. What do you think you'll imagine they're talking about?